A very good evening and a very warm welcome to yet another episode on Best Roundup Special Edition. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. This topic is based on ICT, and ICT happens to be the backbone of an economy of a country. And we happen to not be able to live without ICT in our lives. And speaking of this very particular industry, we have a subject expert together with us joining on a very timely discussion. And this personality happens to be none other than the Vice President of Huawei Technologies Lanka and also ICT Industry Skills Council representative, Mr. Indika De Souza. A very warm welcome to you, sir. So to start off the conversation, sir, I think we should be focusing on the literacy rate in Sri Lanka. So the literacy rate in Sri Lanka in general is above 90%. And the ICT sector is around 30% roughly. And with regard to digitalization, it's about 46%. So how do you see this? Are you satisfied with these rates? And what is your perspective on this particular area?
Satisfaction rate, there's a lot of room to improve. Which I can start the discussion, right? But when you look at when as a nation, when we introduced free education in mid-1940s, many of us are part of that free education system. So because of that, we still have a very high literacy rate. When it comes to mid-80s, the literacy rate was one of the biggest indicators of a nation's wealth. Now, after the technology being introduced and the digitization was started happening, this literacy rate is required, but the main indicator has become the digital literacy rate or the IT literacy rate. Now, IT literacy rate has moved to digital literacy rate. So, right now when you do a comparison with the region or the global environment, we are not in par versus the literacy rate we had. So, we were in par with all the developed nations or the mature markets, what we call it, on the literacy rate. But on the digital literacy or the IT literacy, we are little behind with the region as well as the mature markets. Now, what this means? Now, say I'll take a small example. When you take 20 years back, what are the biggest brands in the world? It's all oil companies. If you take today, what are the biggest brands? You take top 10, it's the IT companies. You can see the shift. Like that's a basic indicator of somebody can understand where the world is heading. With this changeover, if you are not digitally literate, maybe you are, we can as individual, even I am not digital literate, I'm an outdated citizen. So it's common for an organization, it's common for a what you call institute, country, that's the same situation. So even we have seen in last 15-20 years, there are companies who are huge global multinationals which have never embraced on the technology and they have disappeared. All right, you have there are companies who are very big in phone industry, and where they invented the smartphone, they never thought smartphone is going to take over the world, and they disappeared. Right now there are companies who are big leaders in the camera industry, which is they never thought the digital camera will take over. But when you look at even the camera market as example, if you look at dominance of the camera market is right now is the phone companies, it's not the camera making companies, because phone has taken over that feature to the phone. So like that, it has evolved in a way that you have to have the digital literacy. Now in day-to-day life, all of us went through this lockdown situation. What saved us is digital. Say without e-commerce, people couldn't order things online, people couldn't or kids couldn't do didn't have the access, were staying at home, or you you are disconnected with the world, right? So we use things like the Facebook, WhatsApp, you can look using e-commerce platform to order your food, do using different platforms to have your business meetings, or kids were using different technologies to do their day-to-day classes or the school activities, the lesson plans, all that, right? So you can see how digital is impacting in your life. So this is very critical as a nation. We get these indicators higher much as possible, and the thing is, you can boast about having the we are digital literate, but how you make use of it, what do you do, how do you add productivity to you, your life, your organization, your country. You really need to think through that entire cycle. How do you do the transformation?
Indeed, what you're saying is that without ICT, there is basically no survival. And also, still, we have a lot of room for improvement in our country, within our area.
Exactly.
So, speaking of which, President recently declared a skills development decade.
Yep.
Can you briefly explain as to what this is and what is your perspective on this initiative?
Yeah, so it's all about how do you make our nation skilled. So it's all about why you need to name a decade. That's actually we are looking at doing a jump start. So when you look at what President has declared, he's talking clearly few things. He's talking about currently our unskilled labor workforce is at about 35%. He has defined two goals. He wants to reduce it by 2023 to 20% and 2025 to 10%. Right? That's a two indicate. I mean that's a the marks which is we need to achieve. So now we need to do quite a bit of work. Now say you can be educated or you can have a lot of certificates, you can have degrees, right? But you need to have the skill to do a job. The skill is what is required. Now say you look at a lot of international media or like communication, a lot of corporates are saying they are not really looking what you are qualified at, what is the degree you have. What they check is the skill level. Even for your organization, even my organization, I say I advertise on a basic requirement, I need degree or a master's or whatever, but at the interview what I check is the person has a skill set. The problem we have been having is, yes, the skill what is required in the industry versus what is being trained, there's a gap. So now here what will happen is, we have a feeder, that is the education system. Somebody gets in at preschool, grade 1, go through a process up to A level, O level, and you go to uni or you go to vocational, you go do a professional courses. In that, we need to look at the modern technologies and see that whoever goes through that channel are coming out with a set of skill sets, what can be really transformed into the, or that person is ready to go into the job day one, you can start, but that is the industry requirement, right? So when you really look at it, now there are a lot of studies it talks about the kid who is in school today, when they come out of school or when they graduate, the job that person is going to do is not there. We don't know what is the job the person is going to do, right? And also the problem that kids are supposed to solve when they come to the job market, that problem also not there. So we need to train a student who is in school or the university right now to do a job which doesn't exist now and solve a problem doesn't exist now. So this is where the transformation is required. So we need to get newer technologies into it. So digital is actually a medium. You use technology as simply use technology to teach in the classroom. It can be science, maths, whatever, religion, whatever the subject. So, and also you have a separate stream which is technology focused, that's separate. But here you use technology. Now assignment based things, and we are talking about STEM education or STEAM education now, right? And also we talk about now say in our era, which is we had the science lab, and later on you had the computer lab. What is new? You need to have a maker space in our schools. What is this maker space? You have an idea, you go to that maker space, you have 3D printers and gadgets. You basically make that a product or a service using these tools that is available. So your ideas can be transformed. That's exactly what the transformation is all about. So in these 10 years, you are looking at aligning the education system to reduce the unskilled labor in our country, and also make sure that then at the end of the day, when you reduce unskilled labor, you have a skilled labor force, your productivity goes up, and we have a fairly large amount of people going abroad with unskilled labor. So we need to focus on the skill areas, which is our productivity goes up, and also the yield will go up when you have skilled labor.
Indeed, what you're saying is grooming is essential, it's crucial in the skills development sector for our kids these days especially.
Yes.
So speaking of which, we are talking about a decade here.
Yep.
What is the significance of naming it as a decade.
Okay. So, actually this has a history. Sri Lanka has a, what do you say, really a very close link. So, the Sustainable Development Goals, what do you call SDGs? SDGs is actually ending in 2030. So, in 2014, current Prime Minister at that time as a capacity of the President for the country, he has proposed to United Nations that there should be a dedicated or focus day for skills development for youth. So, in 2014, this resolution was adopted at the United Nations. This was proposed in 2013 and adopted, and 15th of July was the day that the day was announced by the United Nations. So, now 15th of July 2020, the current President Gotabaya Rajapaksa announced the skills decade, because there is a link why this is all about. And also a few months back, President has appointed a presidential task force to look into this, because this has been a key area which is continuing to be focused. So, this is primary recommendation, there are primary recommendations are already on progress, and looking at all these areas, general education, higher education, vocational education, even pre-reven education, there are things which is being looked at, what needed for future, what are the skills is needed for future, industries involved in it, and with that this decade was named with a roadmap. So, now if you look at a kid who is getting into the school, in 10 years the kid will actually get into the job market. So, we have a full cycle coming in, and also this will have a link with the United Nations SDGs, which is we have a global focus as well. So, this is syncing together, and which is we will have a complete roadmap, short term, mid term, long term. Actually, what will happen is more likely, like till about 2025 the changes will happen, and after 2025, which is we will have the harvesting happening. That means that production will come into the market and start doing the changes.
So, certainly naming this as a decade has a very much of a significance
Exactly.
to it. And I think on that note, we shall be heading in for a short break. We'll be back again. Until then, stay tuned. And welcome back after the break. We're in discussion with Mr. Indika de Souza, the Vice President of Huawei Technologies Lanka, and also ICT Industry Skills Council representative. And to get back on track with the questions, sir, after COVID-19, after the imposition of the curfew or within this period, we had this significant surface of digitalization within the education sector. In almost all industries, all education stuff were carried out online, almost everything went online. So how do you see this? Like, why did we have to wait this long? Only after COVID we took this great leap. Why did it take so long?
Yep. So, say I've been in the industry for a while, and I have been in large multinationals. This is part of our life. This is nothing new. You do meetings over the video conferencing or different apps you have. I mean, personally, I've been doing this for last 20 years, right? And if you ask me, is it something new? Only thing was I never went to office for about a month or so. That was the only change. But when you're working with different geographies, different time zones, when you run the business like that, your boss is in a different country sometime, right? And in a different time zone altogether, this is how we work. This is very much known with a lot of large corporates when you're looking at it. But what happens here in even a global context, even a Sri Lankan context or even Asian context, people were forced to do it. There was this new thing what you call working from home, right? Say if you talk to anybody in larger corporates, they will say you have something called flex hours. You can do your work the time you want, and there's a large community in even Sri Lanka who do freelancing. So this is their normal life. They work from home or a coffee shop or I don't know, under a tree, wherever. What do you need? You need a laptop, you need a connectivity, and you need a probably a smartphone. That's all you need, right? As long as you have these three things, you can do your job anywhere in the world. You can be anywhere, all right? So now what happened was in this environment, people are forced to do, right? Let's take the example of education. Schools were closed, kids were not allowed to go to school. Now you need to continue the studies. You can't have such a long vacations, right? Or then what happens was people started using basic tools, teachers used to send on WhatsApp or email. Then some schools went up to a level of using different tools which you conduct online classes. So I have a daughter, she has classes every day from 7:30 to 11:30. So her school is more or less happening, and all the subjects are taught. Even these days they have the what you call the term test, right? So this is being what you call, you have online learning, you have these terms of blended learning, distance learning. These concepts existed, but there was no reason, or like it was slowly getting adapted, but we were forced to do it because we are closed. You say stay at home, only option, use technology, get connected, you do exactly the learning, right? So now what has happened is people got comfortable using it, right? And now people will not resist. Okay, let's do a call, right? And let's solve the issue what we have. You don't have to have the physical, like say 200 people coming into meetings. We have 500 people webinars now, which is we used to do at a 5-star hotel, which is giving tea, lunch, whatever, right? Now you do it, same communication was done in a different way, but the message is delivered, the impact is there. So here I will not call it a leap as such, we were forced to do it, right? Now what will happen is, now say when you look at something is really, the benchmark is pushed up, right? Maybe sir, due to when the things get normal, schools open, it will never come to that earlier stage. Maybe it will come little lower, but that benchmark will be used. You are right. Say now I know for a fact some people who do this tuition and extra classes, you can't have a class at 9 o'clock in the night, right? But using online you can have it 10 o'clock in the night either. So that's a business model differently being born up, right? And you can do these things at your leisure, like you want to do a revision class, or what you call, kids want to go and search online and do a paper. All that you can do at your own leisure. Otherwise you have to go to 8 o'clock in the class for that in the revision class, right? Now, no, right? So now what will happen is that from now onwards things will be changed in the future, and technology will be used, and people will be more comfortable, and they figured it out different models of using it, and these models will evolve and it will continue to do that. So it actually, we were pushed to do that because of COVID.
COVID certainly gave a boost to it, and
yes.
People, speaking of comfortable, so now adding to that question, certain kind of a population in this country are not very comfortable with let's say online transactions. Now that particular area, people have a sense of concern for security and reliability. So this is a prevailing issue in the country, in the society these days. So how do you address this issue?
Say when you take bank transactions, you pay online, you pay on a say e-commerce site using your credit card or your current account, or you use different payment wallets or whatever digital wallets we have. Say now if there's a bank involved, all the security measures has been taken, right? I'm not saying it's 100% secure, perfect, but whatever need to be done, security aspects have been taken. When you use your credit card, there are ways which is that authentication happens, all that, right? So when one, you can take a basic example, long days back when you had the teller card, people used to withdraw. When the deposit machine came in, people were worried okay, can I deposit money? No, people still want to go to the counter. Say after a while you become comfortable with it, you will start doing it, right? Now when you look in, there was a huge boost of e-commerce, ordering your fish to vegetables to everything online. Even online or an e-commerce system couldn't bear it because there's a sudden boost. But now after you start using it, due to this situation, even people will continue to do it. Now say most of us, when you're going home, you have to buy something. You find lazy to park or whatever, you go to your phone, you order it, by the time you go home it is reached, right? Say, I do that. Now it becomes a more comfort, and there are more tools will be coming in. Say definitely you have this digital divide, right? So how do you go downstream, how best we can use of it? But there are a lot of programs done by government as well, especially with the ICT agency, which is the doing these kind of programs, and society by large are creating awareness downstream, that how technology can be used. Now, we say as example a farmer. Now, you have your production or the crop coming out. Now, you need to figure out how do I sell it. There are a lot of online tools available, like we know things like people are selling basic things like the soursop, the leaves which is been claiming for good for cancer, right. They sell 10 leaves of soursop which is which is available freely in our villages for $5 to $6 on eBay, right. And there are people who sell your handicrafts and things like on like that, and there are a lot of people even if you look at Colombo, they use this Facebook as a tool and sell many things on sweets to biscuits to cakes to certain lot of things. So how do you make use of it and how you do it, and also you need to have some kind of aware about the security aspects, especially when you are using your passcode has to be the secure, all that has to be, you have to have a basic understanding, but there are a lot of awareness has been created, and I think nobody should really worry about it, but you have to be cautious about it, having those basics in place, and after a while people will start using it. So, it is important we educate the downstream, which is go to the rural communities especially, and also some part of the senior citizens has to be educated about it and how technology can be used, how safe it will be, and with the modern technology the more security features are coming in and you should be able to make use of it.
Certainly, and also sir, this is one of my very own personal experiences. Like you said, the new normal has been existing for a while, it's just that we have not been very aware of it.
Correct.
So, speaking of which, we have a lot of digital platforms that we can use on a daily basis. Out in Colombo, not just suburbs, we have a lot of platforms that we can use on a daily basis. So, one of these that I have seen is the parking ticket machine. So, once I was there and I was able to manage through and get my ticket, but not everybody can manage to get themselves a ticket without getting a fine. So, how flexible do you think the Sri Lankan population is? How flexible are they towards adaptation towards ICT in the country?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? Let's say, let's take, I mean, it's not really happening in Sri Lanka right now, but we say some of the countries, now say even you go in the road, you find beggars. So, you look for change money, you don't have change money, probably you don't give anything, right. So, there are some countries, beggars are there with a QR code. You with the QR code you pay. I mean, this is reality.
This is reality.
This is reality. This is there today in some of the country. You go and do a search on QR code beggars or something. Just you will find a lot of pictures and links which is there, right? So that's it's gone to that level. You can pay if you don't have change money. You QR code you pay. So now it can be a parking ticket, or it can go to your get your medical whatever, or your now say even in here. You have to apply your advanced level or the university entrance, certain things online, all right. Say now, that is why I said digital literacy is very critical, because these services are becoming digital and more services are even from a government point of view or banking point of view or private sector point of view, citizen services, this is getting digital. So, you need to have this literacy, or how do you use it and how effectively use it, right. Say now, example of this parking ticket, you have most of the places, when you take the parking ticket, it tells you where the parking slot for you.
Yes.
Otherwise, what you go do, you go there to the parking, you do rounds and rounds until somebody takes out, or you don't know, and it will tell you how many slots available and it will indicate you, right. It will be, by the time you come out, maybe your number plate will be recognized, and this you get the exit, right. So now when you're coming in the highway, this ETC thing, right, which is you take the pass, you don't have to wait in the queue, you go there. So this is where it will give you a very easy, you will save a lot of time, money, energy, everything. So some people may not find it that comfortable, they want to find it, okay, where to pay, how do I pay, sometimes they will go and park in the wrong place without thinking the allocated space. So all that has to be looked at, and there are a lot of awareness. When the first time when the highway was built, there was a lot of communication going, you drive in the left lane and overtake, go back to that, like that. After that, people drives like that, you drive in the proper lane in the highway, but it will take some time, but awareness has to be created, and that's a future, as I said before. Without that, you will be not able to move on.
It will certainly take time for people to adapt. And
Yep.
speaking of people and adapting, what do you think about the female and male divide? As in, through education and throughout the industry, through the careers and everything, there is this particular divide that we see, that males incline more towards the ICT industry than females do. So what is your take on that?
Yes, that is correct, because it is seen as a more of a male dominant industry, and as you said, when you look at the workforce, you have a male dominant situation, but there are a lot of special emphasis has been taken. Even Sri Lanka, we have a lot of development programs, a lot of awareness is being created among the girls, that or like from the school level upwards, a lot of encouragement is given girls to come in or females to come into the digital area. It's like there are certain sectors maybe girls will be by nature will be not interested, but especially areas like the development and the coding, and there are a lot of areas which girls can add a lot of value. So there are a lot of effort has been made, especially from government onwards, as well as a lot of institutes are doing this awareness and creating that knowledge, and the counseling or the guidance has been done to get a fair share to the ladies as well. So that's conscious efforts is being made. I agree with you on the right now. Yes, there is a bit of a gap.
So adding to that, sir, about the male and female divide, we can go for the urban and rural divide as well. Now, not everybody of this population has the facility to access digitalization or the ICT industry, the equipment, the tools. They do not have this. So what is your take on that?
See, I will not quite agree with saying we don't have it. So yes, there's a gap. Not every person has all the equipment. Now, when you say as a country, our data coverage or the broadband coverage is very decent. Telcos have done a great job of taking 4G, even fiber, or whatever the technologies what is needed to access the internet. And also we have a very decent penetration of smartphones. Our what do you say, the high-end laptops or the PCs is also getting increased. Now, if you take an example, a lot of people are having a the smartphone. How many of they are actually using the features of the smartphone? Are they using only for a call, or you using for SMS? What is can be done in a what do you call the feature phone? That means you are not making use of it. So now somebody has a smartphone. There are so many things can be done. All right, you can go to internet and do things. You can use communication through WhatsApp, Viber, all these tools are which is available, and you can have your wallet, the different tools which is available, which you can pay, and all the organizations, most of the organizations has apps which is you can download and do your transactions and pay bills, and basic things can be done. And that same tool can be used for education and learning things and transactions and businesses are thing. But the thing is are you aware about the tools what can be there or what you can do with it? So we will as a country we will not have 100% people will have smartphones and every person in the country will have a laptop. That we can't expect it can happen soon. But again, with the skill decade also, which what president is there, they are trying to increase that penetration. There are programs will come in, especially the school children, the university students, and the vocational training will have those students will have access in different modes to laptops and the learning tools, which is the physical devices. Then they will have that penetration going in, and also teachers and the academics also will have these kind of, and also government officials will. So fairly a large amount of the society will have access, right? And also you have certain places which is the shared access, you can go to a common place and you pay a certain small amount of money and get access to it, and you can do the things what is required, right? Say a basic thing, if you go to especially on a private sector job, what you will get in the first thing? After you do your everything, you get an email ID and a laptop or a PC. If you can't start that, you can't do anything. basic as that, right? So now if we keep complaining saying I don't have access, I don't have this, you will be there and you will be complaining for the entire life. But you need to figure out amount of money you spend for other things versus how you can spend, like, you know, buying at least the basic. I mean, it is doable. I'm not saying every person can do that, like, you know, it's not that easy when with the current context also, but definitely it is getting increased, it is becoming affordable, and there are mechanisms coming in to give access to, especially the people who are in the education sector, who are the kids and the future generation.
So certainly that is what your intake on this particular area. So sir, also we have President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Another statement that he was making was about the local labor force and about the repatriated Sri Lankans who recently came to Sri Lanka. He's saying maybe they can join the local labor force, maybe they will be given employment opportunities in the future and they can remain in the country without traveling abroad again. So do you think how practical this is?
Say it's again about the skill set, right? Say now when you look at certain jobs may get disappeared, there will be certain new jobs will come in. Now everybody, even people who came from abroad as well as people who are living here, say certain people who came from abroad maybe would have bought certain skill sets which is required. The learnings they have got, the experience they have got can be blended into our economy. So that can be a plus point. And also which is who are living here also need to develop that skill set what is required, right? And we know certain industries like the hotel industry, like, you know, certain industries or entertainment industry, these industries are heavily impacted because of the current environment. But when you need to look at, okay, say as example we take you say you are an artist, you will not have this physical, what you call the musical entertainment shows and things like that. But look at a basic thing like you open up a YouTube channel and you do your performance using the YouTube channel. I mean, people are doing it, but some people never did it, right? But and people spend more time at home. I will also use to access it and for my entertainment, right? I mean, that's a basic example of what I got. Like, you know, in different industries, people can do different things like that, which is you need to recreate your value and you need to learn things which is you don't know, and enhance your skill set, which is you can be a competitive person in the market or your organization or for the country. So what President would have meant is, like, you know, blending that experience people can bring in and also adding a little bit of skills. You can contribute to the local economy, which is end of the day building the whatever the challenge we can face can be faced together with this blend of knowledge and the skills people can bring in together.
Certainly. Now, I'd like to highlight the term that you said, values. And to end this conversation, sir, I'd like to say we are people at the end of the day. We are all humans and we need that humanity aspect of being a human in society. So how do you strike a balance between digitalization and humanity for you to prevail while you preserve the core values as a human being?
Say you use technology as a tool, right? So now I don't know, most of us has these Facebook pages which is with our batchmates in the school. Some people are across the world, or you have certain communication tools we use to be in touch. Now probably without the technology I would have been not known where that guy is, right? So now we are in touch, we communicate. If they needed, like, you know, if one of our friends needs some help, we get together and we help the person, because we use this as a tool, right? That's an example of how technology can be used, be in touch, share things, or among families, like, you know, all that happens. But, like, you know, say we should not become not the right word, you shouldn't be, say you should be, like, you know, go to a party, you should be not looking at your phone and waiting, like, you know, you should be talking to people, right?
Out there, yes,
yes.
You should engage.
So, yeah, so, and also because of technology you should not be distance, you need to have our values. As a nation also we have, culturally we have a lot of values you need to inculcate, but you need to use at the right time, right place, technology as a tool for the things you do. It can work, entertainment, education, whatever you do, you use it as a tool, and as humans we should know where I should use it or why should I not use it. So I think that's my thinking on it, and it's a tool been there, use it for betterment of your life.
Certainly, and that is a very valuable statement. And on that note, I think we had a very timely discussion on this regard with regard to the ICT industry, and that is some advice that you can certainly take home with you after this special episode. So we were in conversation with ICT Industry Skills Council representative and Vice President of Huawei Technologies Lanka, Mr. Indika de Souza. Thank you very much for joining with us, sir.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being on board with us, and we'll be back again with another special edition on BIS Roundup. Until then, take care. Good night.